At one point, I thought I had the perfect life. Right out of college, I had a good job and a marriage I believed would last forever. Leah, my ex-wife, was someone I thought I'd grow old with. We met when I played football in college, and while I wasn't the star, I was proud of my strength. Leah, part of the dance team, caught my eye with her beauty and grace. Things were good at first, but over time they unraveled. I became focused on work, and Leah grew distant, spending more time with her friends, especially Susie. I didn't realize how much Susie's influence pulled us apart until it was too late, and our marriage fell apart. Fast forward, I'm back at the gym trying to reclaim my fitness. Angie, my personal trainer, pushes me hard during our sessions, and my primary motivation? Sex, love, and happiness. Mostly sex. After my divorce, I wanted to make myself desirable again. I'd let myself go over the years, and the weight gain was evident. In 2012, Leah and I seemed like the perfect couple, the football player and the dance team member. I fell for her looks immediately, but I wasn't the star quarterback. I was a lineman at a small college. Over time, the muscles I once had softened, and my weight shot up as I spent more time at a desk. My name's Thomas Patrick Swanson, but most people call me Tommy. I've even been compared to Chris Farley, with my unruly blonde hair and round face. After college, I landed a job at Silent Network Solutions, SNS, a company that installs and monitors networks. Leah worked at Macy's, and we seemed happy, at least for the first 3 years. But the last 2 years were tough. We fought constantly, and Susie didn't help. She was Leah's best friend from college, a man-hating, bitter woman after her divorce. Leah spent more time with Susie, and soon, girls' night out became a regular thing. I tried setting boundaries, but the outings increased, and things got worse. Work didn't help either. I was newly promoted and working long hours, while Leah became more distant. Our arguments grew, and Susie's influence became a constant problem. I felt like I was fighting for our marriage, but Leah was retreating into her friendship with Susie. In the end, both of us let the marriage fall apart. I tried to fix things, suggesting counseling and making efforts to lose weight, but Leah seemed checked out. We fell into a toxic cycle, and the marriage ended. Even though I knew my marriage was struggling, its end still blindsided me. Leah had been unhappy, but recently she'd seemed in a better mood. Maybe I didn't ask questions because I was afraid of what I'd find. I didn't think she was cheating yet, but I knew things were heading that way if something didn't change. What I feared most was that she'd choose Susie over me, which would destroy our marriage. I came home early one Saturday and found Leah and Susie dressed to go out. Their laughter stopped when they saw me. Leah smiled, but Susie's look was closer to a smirk. The conversation quickly grew tense, with Susie mocking me and revealing things I hadn't fully processed. When she implied Leah had cheated, I snapped and punched the wall near Susie's face, fueled by anger and heartbreak. Leah didn't deny Susie's accusations, and I realized our marriage was over. I confronted Leah, and she admitted she hadn't tried to fix our relationship. I told her to leave, and soon after, I moved out. Despite considering revenge, I realized there was little to gain. We had no kids, no property, and the marriage had lasted only 5 years. My boss, Maria, helped me refocus and introduced me to a divorce attorney, Delphina Featherstone, who handled the process smoothly. The divorce went through quickly, though every meeting with Leah was painful. I gave her most of our savings to avoid prolonged contact. A few months later, the divorce was finalized, and my dream of a future with Leah was gone. Though Leah and I had little contact during the divorce, Brownwood was small, and I occasionally saw her. One night, I spotted her at City Lights with Rob Sutherland, a shift supervisor at the battery plant. It didn't take long to connect the dots. Susie had mentioned Rob months ago, and now I knew it was him. Marcus was probably Marcus Dixon, another guy Leah was involved with. Both were arrogant and thought they were irresistible. But I decided it wasn't worth confronting them. Besides, without proof, it would have been pointless, and Leah wasn't worth the trouble. After seeing them together, I withdrew from socializing, focusing instead on work and overeating. My weight ballooned to 345 pounds. In spring 2014, after a year of wallowing in self-pity, I decided to change. I cleaned up my appearance, started eating better, and joined a gym, although my progress was slow and inconsistent. That's when I realized I needed help and met Angie Miles, the owner of Main Street Fitness. Angie, a former dancer turned fitness trainer, had a reputation at the gym. Despite her tough exterior, she was supportive but firm, especially with the men. After weeks of little progress, she called me out for sneaking McDonald's. Embarrassed but determined, I joked with her and she challenged me to find real motivation to lose the weight. A few days later, I admitted that my biggest motivation would be her. I told her I'd be motivated by the idea of spending time with someone like her, even though I knew it was a fantasy. Surprisingly, she didn't laugh it off. Instead, she came up with a plan. If I lost 80 pounds in 8 months, I could take her to the Christmas ball at the Hawthorne Hotel, one of the fanciest events in town. Angie also set smaller goals. At 30 pounds lost, I'd start ballroom dance lessons to prepare for the ball. At 60 pounds, we'd go on a dinner date just to get comfortable with each other before the big event. It wasn't the motivation I'd expected, but it was enough to get me off my bum and start working hard. I couldn't stop smiling at the thought of taking Angie Miles on a date. She noticed and raised an eyebrow. "Tommy boy," she said sternly. "Remember, no sex, and I reserve the right to change the agreement as we go along." My smile faded. "That's fine, Angie," I replied seriously. "But don't idiot me around. I won't tolerate that. My ex-wife did, and I'm not going through that again. Got it?" She studied me for a moment before nodding. "Okay, I understand." After that, I got more serious about losing weight. Angie's deal worked better than I expected. I started imagining us dancing, and it motivated me to watch what I ate. People at the gym noticed the change, and when they asked, I gave vague answers about wanting to date again. But my friend Brandon, a gym regular, wasn't fooled. "So, who is she?" he asked while I struggled with a squat. "What?" I grunted. "Who's the girl you're working out for?" he repeated with a grin. I tried to deflect, but Brandon, a smart guy, quickly figured it out. "Holy crap, it's Miss TOS, isn't it?" I explained the arrangement. Angie agreed to go to the Christmas ball with me if I lost the weight, but made it clear there was nothing romantic or sexual involved. Unfortunately, Brandon didn't keep quiet, and soon rumors were flying around the gym. One afternoon, I heard Angie's furious voice behind me. She stormed over, eyes blazing. "What the hell have you been telling people?" she yelled. "I told you I'm not sleeping with you." I tried to explain, but she cut me off, accusing me of spreading lies. She told me to pack up and leave her gym. I was humiliated but managed to stay calm, insisting I never told anyone that. Eventually, I realized Brandon's gossip had caused the misunderstanding. Later, Brandon sheepishly admitted he'd exaggerated the story. I told him to fix it or we'd have a serious problem. I left the gym angry and unsure how to handle the situation. Hours later, Angie called, apologizing for overreacting and asking to meet. We agreed to meet at McDonald's. When I arrived, Angie was there with her daughter, Erica. As we sat down, Angie apologized for the things she'd said at the gym, admitting she'd overreacted. I responded coldly, reminding her I wasn't going to be made a fool again. Realizing I needed to tone down my anger, I playfully asked Erica if she'd share her fries. Her giggle helped ease the tension between Angie and me. Angie explained that the rumors had hit a sensitive spot, and she lost her temper. "Tommy boy, I'd like you to stay at the gym, if you can find it in yourself to forgive me," she said quietly. I sighed. It wasn't hard to understand why a beautiful woman like Angie was upset after being objectified. I didn't like that she'd attacked me in public, but I could see she was genuinely sorry. "And Brandon?" I asked. "He's on thin ice, but at least he apologized," she said. I chose not to mention the threat I'd made to Brandon. "All right, Angie, apology accepted. But you were right about some things." She looked confused. "I won't lie, the rumors have changed how people see me at the gym, mostly for the better. I've been honest about our agreement, nothing sexual, and I've made that clear." Her expression softened. "Thank you. I really needed to hear that." "Angie, I get that the ogre never ends up with the princess, but I wasn't trying to hurt you." "Stop with the ogre talk, Tommy boy," she snapped. "I don't want to hear it." Her daughter Erica chimed in. "Mommy, you said a bad word," which lightened the mood as we all laughed. Erica called me Tommy Bear and teased me about ogres, which got both Angie and me smiling again. Later, Angie and I sat down to talk privately. She confessed she'd been misunderstood. She explained she wasn't upset with me specifically, but had always struggled with being viewed as just sexy. Angie shared her past, how she'd been an exotic dancer to pay for college, met her ex-husband Eric, and eventually opened the gym together. After he left, she was stuck with debt, their daughter, and a gym to run. She admitted she hated the implants Eric convinced her to get, but they still drew attention and helped keep the gym afloat. She also shared her unfulfilled dream of becoming a physical therapist, but being a single mother running a business made it feel impossible. I encouraged her to consider finishing her degree, and we bonded over our conversation. Angie seemed relieved to have someone to talk to. By the end of the night, we'd agreed to be friends, and I spent time entertaining Erica, realizing just how much both she and her mom needed a stable presence in their lives. In the weeks that followed, I lost my first 20 pounds, and Angie pushed me harder in the gym. Erica joined us sometimes, cheering me on. She even gave me a nickname, Tommy Buns, which got plenty of laughs at the gym, but I managed to negotiate with Angie to settle on Tommy Bear instead. In return, I promised to help get the guys at the gym to stop calling her Miss TOS. It was a fair deal. I quickly became Tommy Bear within a few days, and the teasing about Miss Toss also died down after some talks and subtle threats. With the distractions gone, I focused on my diet and reached my 30-pound goal, which meant it was time to start the dance lessons. The ballroom at the Hawthorne was elegant, smaller than modern hotels, but charming. When I first held Angie close during those lessons, it felt like a dream. I picked up the footwork quickly, and as I approached my 40-pound goal, we danced even closer. Angie was surprised at how smoothly I moved, and we rarely stepped on each other's toes. One day, Angie asked to meet with me in her office. "Tommy boy," she said, "I'd like to modify our agreement." Curious, I agreed. She explained that a young woman at the gym, Tara Reyes, had asked for a similar arrangement with me. Tara, who was heavier but very pretty, wanted to lose 40 pounds before her senior year at St. Catherine's. She'd heard about my past and believed I could understand her struggles. Though initially unsure, I agreed to help Tara, especially after hearing her story. Her ex-boyfriend had treated her poorly, and she felt I could empathize with her situation. Our workouts began right after my sessions with Angie, and Tara's dedication inspired me as well. Soon I hit my 50-pound goal ahead of schedule. Angie and Erica invited me to a July 4th picnic on the Brownwood Square. Erica, excited for the fireworks, ran up to me, and we spent the evening laughing and enjoying each other's company. Angie, wearing a large fake diamond ring, joked it was to ward off unwanted attention. She clarified that my role was as a friend, not a protector, but appreciated my support. As we chatted, Angie admitted she rarely dated seriously after her divorce, though she had a friends with benefits arrangement with someone. I teased her about being a lucky dog, but we laughed it off, understanding our friendship was special. The rest of the evening went smoothly, except for a drunk guy who wouldn't take no for an answer from Angie. He eventually left after she got stern with him. Later, right before the fireworks started, Erica needed to use the bathroom, so I offered to take her. Since the line for the women's restroom was long, I took her into the men's room and guarded the stall. When she finished, I improvised by using a water bottle to help her wash her hands outside. As we returned, I saw the same drunk guy with two friends bothering Angie. Her tense body language told me she was upset. Erica ran up to her mom, and I leaned down to kiss Angie, playing the part of her boyfriend to deter the men. The fireworks started, distracting everyone, and the drunk guy muttered something inappropriate. I took advantage of the noise and sucker punched him, knocking him out cold. His friends quickly gathered him and left. A few onlookers clapped as I sat down beside Angie. She softly asked, "Feel better?" I chuckled and said, "Much." Erica eventually crawled into my lap, and we enjoyed the rest of the fireworks. I carried her on my shoulders as we walked Angie and Erica to their car. On the way, I caught a glimpse of us in a store window, a man with a little girl on his shoulders walking beside a beautiful woman. The image stuck with me. At the car, Angie thanked me and gave me a kiss on the cheek, saying it was a night Erica would remember. As they left, I headed to my own car, but Bill, the drunk guy, and his friends showed up, looking for a fight. Though I managed to take them on at first, they eventually overpowered me. The police arrived and broke up the fight before it got too serious. I drove myself to the ER to get checked out, feeling bruised, but mostly okay. The nurse who helped me, Bree, was someone I vaguely knew, and she took care of me as I reflected on the night. I knew Mariah still kept in touch with Bree and her husband, Zach, even though he now worked at Grimm Engineering Solutions. Bree laughed when I asked if she was the ER nurse, explaining she was just filling in and usually worked in the children's ward. She quickly got me signed in, and soon Dr. Cayley, an older doctor, examined me with a bit of humor. "So, fight much?" he joked while poking my bruises. I tried to laugh but winced in pain. After some x-rays confirmed my ribs were only bruised, I got pain meds and headed home thinking, what a night. What's next? The next day at work, Mariah noticed my injuries. "I hope the other guy looks worse," she commented. I explained it was actually a few guys, and she nodded, concerned but lighthearted. She advised me to stay low-key with clients until the bruises healed. A few days later, Angie finally saw me. She was angry I hadn't called her from the ER and guilty when she realized it was Bill and his buddies who had knocked me up. I reassured her it was my fault for starting the fight, but her repeated emphasis on us being just friends made it clear that's all we'd ever be. Accepting this reality, I shifted my focus to dating again. While Angie and I remained close friends, I started going out with other women from the gym and work. Though some dates ended back at my apartment, they felt empty, like forgettable one-night stands. Tara, however, was a bright spot. As we continued our workouts, she worked hard and her transformation was noticeable. One day, after catching me staring at her yoga pants, she teased, "It's been a while since a nice guy looked at me like that." I blushed, but we laughed it off. 6 weeks later, I hit my 60-pound goal, and Tara had lost 30 pounds. She wouldn't hit her target before school started, but she was close. To celebrate my progress, I set up a date with Angie. I reminded myself it wasn't a romantic date, just two friends going out. Erica greeted me at Angie's house, excited about our plans. I met Mrs. Harper, the elderly neighbor who babysat Erica, and she commented on how nice I looked in my suit. When Angie emerged, wearing a stunning little black dress, I had to remind myself we were just friends. Dinner at DeVesto's was fantastic, and although Angie was hit on once, she spent the evening with me, turning down every guy who asked her to dance. We danced together, and during the slower songs, I couldn't help but fantasize about her. But by the end of the night, she gave me a friendly kiss on the cheek and thanked me for being a perfect gentleman. Realizing I needed to move on, I started focusing on women who might be real romantic possibilities. However, fate had other plans. A busy work schedule and Tara hitting her weight goal meant I had to set up a date with her instead. When I picked up Tara for our date, I was blown away by her transformation. She wore knee-high lace-up boots, tight jeans, and a blood-red corset that accentuated her curves. "Damn, girl," I said, admiring her from head to toe. Tara giggled, spinning around to show off her look, and I couldn't help but be amazed by how confident and beautiful she had become. Tara's dark brown eyes sparkled, and her smile lit up the room. Apparently, even a big, clueless guy like me can say the right thing sometimes. She surprised me by choosing Sherman's Wharf for dinner, a casual seafood spot off the interstate, not one of Brownwood's upscale restaurants like DeVesto's. When she saw my surprise, she laughed. "Tommy boy, I plan on dancing all night, and a light salad is perfect. Plus, I can barely breathe in this corset, and anything heavier might make it pop." I laughed, not sure that would be a bad thing. After a fun dinner, we headed to the Strobe for a night of dancing. Tara was turning heads, and even asked my permission when another guy wanted to dance with her, though I reminded her it was her night. She made it clear she was with me and danced with me most of the time. Everything was going great until Susie, from my past, showed up. Susie, dressed provocatively and with two men in tow, made snide comments about my weight and tried to provoke me. I fired back with insults of my own, which rattled her enough for her companions to pull her away. One of the men, Hawthorne, apologized for the disruption and sent over a bottle of champagne to make amends, which Tara and I enjoyed in the VIP section. The rest of the night was carefree and fun as we danced and laughed. Afterward, we took a long walk, and Tara snuggled close to me. By the end of the walk, we kissed, and the chemistry between us was undeniable. She whispered, "Take me to your apartment," and we barely made it inside before we were all over each other. The night was filled with passion, and we woke up the next morning wrapped in each other's arms, a feeling I had missed. A week later, I was back at the gym with Angie, who had clearly been waiting to say something. "What did you do to that girl?" she asked, amused. Confused, I asked, "Why? Is she okay?" Angie laughed. "Better than okay. Tara's been floating on air since your date. She thinks you walk on water." I smiled, but admitted, "I don't think we'll be long-term. She's too young, and she deserves someone without all my baggage." Angie gave me an odd look before packing up her things, saying, "You're an unusual one, Tommy boy." At least she didn't call me nice or safe. Over the next month and a half, I struggled but finally broke the 70-pound mark. Tara and I went out several times, enjoying ourselves both in and out of the bedroom. We were becoming close friends, but I knew our romantic connection wasn't strong enough for a long-term relationship. It was bittersweet, but we both recognized it. One evening, we went to a Crusader football game, and Tara kept glancing over her shoulder at someone. It turned out to be her ex, Sean, glaring at us. She laughed it off and mentioned she'd spread some embarrassing rumors about him, which likely explained his anger. I joked that I'd better stay on her good side, and she teased me back, reminding me of our playful relationship. Tara and I both knew our connection was shifting from romantic to platonic. She admitted she cared deeply for me, but we both understood it wasn't enough for a lifetime commitment. We ended the night with a kiss, knowing we'd always be good friends. A week later, she started dating a guy named Jeremy, someone she met at the game, and I was happy for her. By November, I worked hard to lose the final 10 pounds to meet my 80-pound goal. Angie invited me to join her and Erica for Thanksgiving, which I gladly accepted since I wasn't going home to Wisconsin. Angie had started new Thanksgiving traditions with Erica, which included serving the less fortunate before having their own dinner. We spent the morning at the Lighthouse Mission, helping to serve meals. Erica's charm and fearlessness won over everyone there, and I was humbled by how much joy she brought to the people. Thanksgiving dinner at Angie's wasn't traditional but delicious, featuring healthier dishes like spicy kale salad and herb-stuffed turkey chest. After dinner, Angie thanked me for trusting her and not filling up on mashed potatoes at the mission. I also told her I'd reached my 80-pound goal. "Good," she said, smiling. "I've already bought my dress for the Christmas ball, and I don't think you'll be disappointed." As the night of the ball approached, I prepared for the big event, renting a tux and even booking a limo. When I arrived at Angie's house, Mrs. Harper answered the door, complimenting me on how sharp I looked. Erica pouted about not having a dress as pretty as her mom's, but I promised to take her shopping for one. Then I looked up and saw Angie in her stunning blue dress, and for a moment, it felt like I was looking at an angel. Angie's sapphire gown flowed gracefully over her curves, her blonde hair pinned up elegantly, highlighting her neck. A white gold necklace with diamond teardrops shimmered like dew on her skin. She looked like an adult fairy princess, leaving me speechless as I stood there awestruck. Angie beamed, and Mrs. Harper laughed. "Angie, you look incredible," I finally managed. "Thank you," she replied, smiling. "I hope you're not disappointed." "Not possible," I said, taking her arm and leading her to the limo. The Hawthorne Hotel was decked out for the Christmas ball, and despite the lavish decorations and beautiful gowns, Angie drew plenty of attention when she stepped out of the limo. In my eyes, she was the most stunning woman there. We danced for an hour, her body warm against mine, and she playfully teased me the whole time. She turned down every man who asked her to dance, focusing only on me. I spotted familiar faces, including Susie, but avoided her. While we were taking a break, a man approached Angie. She froze when she saw him. "Daniel?" she said softly. "Angela," he replied warmly. Daniel was a handsome, well-dressed man in his 30s. He barely acknowledged me, but Angie introduced us. I realized he was Daniel Pickering, a high-profile lawyer with political ambitions. He ignored me and complimented Angie. "Sorry, Dan, but I'm here with Tommy and my dance card is full," Angie said firmly. After he left, Angie asked me to take a walk. Once we were away from the ballroom, she turned to me, her eyes teary. "I'm so sorry, Tommy. I can't believe he treated you like that. Dan has been possessive lately, and I never wanted you to feel disrespected." I assured her I wasn't offended. "Angie, I'm here with the most beautiful woman in Brownwood. That's all that matters." She smiled, kissed my cheek, and we headed back to the ballroom, stopping at the restroom so she could freshen up. I waited outside, and soon enough, an unwelcome voice interrupted. "Leah," I said, forcing a polite smile. She looked good, but had gained weight since our divorce. Her date was Theo Hawthorne, the man I'd seen at the strobe. After a brief, tense exchange, Angie returned, kissed me deeply, and dismissed Leah with a subtle glance. Angie greeted Theo politely, and I felt grateful to have her by my side as we rejoined the evening, leaving Leah behind. Leah was visibly surprised, but Angie quickly shifted her attention back to me with a mischievous smile. Pressing herself against me, she reached into her purse and pulled out a small dark blue underwear, matching her dress, and swapped it for my tuxedo pocket square. "Shall we dance some more before our real workout begins?" she teased, leaving me speechless. I nodded as she led me back into the ballroom. Before leaving, I turned to Leah. "By the way, I saw your friend Susie earlier. I thought she'd be working the parking lot with all the luxury cars outside," I said calmly. Theo snickered, trying to hide his amusement as Leah glared at him. As Angie and I danced, she muttered, "I can't believe that witch." I laughed. "Witches and drama, oh my." Angie chuckled, pressing herself closer to me as we danced, teasing me until the song ended. By then, she had me completely flustered. "What were you saying?" she grinned. Changing the subject, I asked if she knew Theo Hawthorne. Angie laughed, explaining she knew many of Brownwood's elite, thanks to Eric. She also revealed that Eric had run off with Priscilla Rutherford. Despite the scandal, Angie had remained on good terms with most of those families. After some playful banter, Angie reminded me she'd want the underwear back. When I asked when she'd removed it, she revealed she'd done so earlier, anticipating a run-in with Leah. Her plan had clearly worked. As we danced again, I couldn't help but feel like I was living a fairy tale. However, as the evening wound down, Angie asked a more serious question in the limo. Where do we go from here? Jokingly, I replied about how the night would end with a cheeky kiss. She laughed, but clarified she wanted to know about my weight loss journey. She encouraged me to push for another 20 pounds, saying it would be life-changing for me. I chuckled, calling her a cheerleader, and she joked about having a Santa's helper outfit ready for the children's ward Christmas party at the hospital. She convinced me to join, and we both laughed at the idea of me as Rudolph. On Saturday, I escorted Angie and Erica, both dressed as elves, to the party. Angie looked adorable in her festive outfit, but even when trying to be cute, she still managed to stir feelings in me. When we arrived, we learned the scheduled Santa had fallen ill, and both Angie and the orange-haired nurse, Bree, turned their attention to me. Moments later, I found myself dressed as Santa. Playing Santa for the kids was heartwarming, but also heartbreaking. Some of their Christmas wishes were so touching that I had to hold back tears. Even Angie had tears in her eyes. I did my best to stay jolly for the kids and handed out presents before making my exit, deeply moved by the experience. After playing Santa for the kids, I collapsed in a back room, completely drained. Angie and Bree followed me, thanking me repeatedly. Angie mentioned one last little girl wanted to sit on Santa's lap. Ho, 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 little girl, I joked. Want to sit on Santa's lap? You've got to be very good or very bad for it to work. In your dreams, Santa, Angie laughed. Ouch, I replied, making them both laugh harder. I'll go get her, Angie said, leaving the room. She knows it's me, right? I asked. Nope, Angie smiled. I told her you were taking care of Santa's sleigh. She shot me a seductive look as she added, By the way, Santa, I've been a very good girl this year. I groaned as Bree chuckled. Moments later, Angie returned with Erica and some staff. Erica jumped onto my lap, all smiles. Hi, Santa, remember me? She asked. Of course, I said in my Santa voice. I've been watching you. Her eyes went wide before she whispered her Christmas wish in my ear. Santa, I want a real daddy. That hit me hard. How could her father abandon such a sweet little girl and her amazing mom? She added another request for a pink bike, which I could handle more easily. Santa will see what he can do, I said, hugging her. She giggled and called me Santa Bear before running off. Then Angie sat on my lap, grinning. There were a few catcalls from the staff. So, little girl, what do you want for Christmas? I asked, staying in character. She leaned in and whispered, If you lose 100 pounds, I'll give you a lap dance you won't forget. I groaned loudly, making everyone laugh as she walked back to Bree with a triumphant grin. After I changed out of the costume, I joined Angie and Erica in the lobby. We joked about Santa's muddy sleigh, and Angie teased about guys hitting on her while waiting. Later, over lunch, Angie asked if Erica had mentioned the pink bike. I confirmed I already had it on layaway, which made her smile. Then she asked about Erica's other wish, but I kept that one to myself. Angie grew serious and reminded me she was serious about the lap dance promise. I hesitated, telling her it wasn't her, but that crossing those lines between us would be hard. I explained how her keeping things friendly made it easier for me to joke around. But if she ever truly turned her charm on, I'd be lost. Angie understood, but shared why she offered something so personal. Because she trusted me. She wanted to give me something special without going too far. She explained how her relationship with Daniel was different because it lacked emotional depth, unlike what she had with me. She suggested a striptease instead of a lap dance, offering to make it a memorable but safe experience. I sat quietly, processing everything, and finally agreed. Angie lit up with excitement, and we both laughed at how this might be a bad idea, but neither of us seemed to care. The holidays stirred up mixed emotions for me. Last year's divorce left me feeling the loneliness of being single, and while I had work to keep me busy this year, I couldn't stop thinking about Angie and Erica, who had gone to Dallas for Christmas. I wished Angie had opened up more about whatever was holding her back from going home, but she hadn't yet. I missed them, and they were on my mind constantly. I wasn't blind. I knew I was falling in love. I already adored Erica, but I was sliding into a fantasy with Angie, even though I knew it would likely end in heartbreak for me. I accepted that being her friend was probably all I could hope for, but maybe friends with benefits wasn't entirely out of reach. After all, she'd offered a lap dance as motivation, so she couldn't find me too repulsive. That offer fueled my workouts. I was hitting the gym 5 times a week to keep holiday weight gain at bay. It helped pass the time until I could see them on New Year's Eve. One unexpected thing happened a few days before Christmas. Leah called. She wanted to apologize for the Christmas ball and promised she wouldn't stay long. Feeling generous, or maybe it was holiday cheer, I agreed. When I opened the door, she'd clearly dressed to impress. Despite the weight she'd gained, she still looked good, and I felt an old spark of attraction, which unsettled me. "Thanks for meeting with me, Tommy Boyden," she began softly. "Our last meeting didn't go well." "You surprised me," I replied, unsure. "I know, I'm sorry. I wanted to say a few things, but it didn't go as planned." "Leah," I said calmly, "we didn't end things on good terms, so why expect a fresh start?" She stayed silent, and I let her in. As she looked around, her eyes lingered on the familiar pieces from our old apartment. "Some of this looks familiar," she said quietly. "I couldn't afford to replace it all right away. By the time I could, I thought it better to save for a house." "Still dreaming of owning a house?" she asked with a hint of sadness. "Of course," I said coldly. "You didn't take all my dreams." Her face tightened as she regained her composure. "I'm so sorry for everything, Tommy Boyden, more than you'll ever know." I sighed. "What do you want, Leah? It's been 2 years. Clearing the air feels pointless. I know I acted like a witch back then. I wish I could undo it, but I can't. I've heard you've moved on, especially seeing you with that beautiful blonde at the ball." Leah sighed. "I meant that as a compliment. You looked handsome, and I was jealous." I kept quiet, resisting the urge to make any snide remarks. "I know my comments were cold, but I haven't been out with Susie in over a year." "Trouble in paradise?" I asked sarcastically. "Yes," she admitted softly. I finally pulled my head out of my back. Surprisingly, I didn't reply, and I thought Angie would have been proud of my restraint. "Tommy boy, I'm sorry. I regret letting Susie lead me away from you and ruining our marriage. You were trying, and I just gave up. I got caught up in her world. It took a lot to snap me out of it. I don't need to hear about your wild times, Leah." "It's not that," she said, shaking her head. "I mean, how I woke up and realized what I'd become." "Leah, we're divorced. You don't owe me this explanation." "I think I do. I hurt you the most, and I need to acknowledge that. You were right about Susie and what she was doing to our marriage. I wish I'd seen it sooner." "You weren't blind," I said sharply. "You knew what you were doing." "Yes," she whispered. I followed her with my eyes wide open, but after our divorce, my fantasy world crumbled. She hesitated before revealing that her wake-up call came after a weekend with Susie, Bryce Hawthorne, and his group of friends. She admitted to doing things she never thought she would, and seeing herself afterward filled her with shame. "I lost my self-respect," she confessed. "When I started talking to my family and old friends, they reminded me of how badly I treated you." Tears welled in her eyes as she looked at me. "I know it's too late, but I wanted to apologize. I'm sorry I destroyed what we had. I still care for you." "What about Theo?" I asked, trying to keep my emotions in check. "We started dating after that weekend. He's kind and checks on me, but we're not exclusive," she explained. "It's hard when he owns clubs where girls throw themselves at him." "Yeah, tough to commit to someone open to a little extra on the side," I said, feeling a knot in my stomach. Leah's face fell, and I could see the pain in her eyes. "I know the irony," she said softly. "I'm just trying to piece my life back together. I know what I did, and I know what I lost. Tommy, I think I'll always love you. I understand we'll never be together again, but I needed you to know." "Thanks for the apology," I replied. "But you're right. We'll never be together again. You threw me and the love we had away like it was nothing. The idea of getting back with you makes me sick." Her face showed the hurt, but I didn't stop. "But," I added, calming myself, "I'm moving on, and I think I'm doing all right." "Is it because of that beautiful blonde at the ball?" "Angie?" she asked, a mix of curiosity and pain in her voice. I chuckled. "No, we're just friends." "Friends with benefits?" she shot back, narrowing her eyes. "None of your damn business," I snapped. "Sorry, it's just, after seeing that kiss she gave you in her little underwear." Leah's voice trailed off, softer now. "I can't compete with someone like her. Even Susie couldn't." "You're wrong," I interrupted. "Neither of you could ever compare to Angie. Not because of her looks. It's because she has something you don't." Leah looked confused. "Character," I said. She'd never betray someone she claimed to love. She'd leave before she ever cheated. But back then, Leah, you could have knocked her easily. You were everything to me. I never looked at Susie after we became a couple. You were the sexiest woman I'd ever seen, at least in my eyes. But you, I growled. You cared more about what others thought than about the guy who loved and married you. You let someone convince you our love wasn't worth fighting for, that it was okay to cheat. In the end, you gave up on us. I shook my head, the buried anger rising. So you're saying you still love me? It means nothing. I don't need that kind of love. Tears rolled down her face. I'm sorry, she whispered. I know it doesn't change anything, but I truly am sorry. I hope you find someone who will love you like I should have. She walked to the door, shoulders shaking, and whispered, I'm sorry, Tommy, before leaving. Maybe it was guilt or missing Angie and Erica, but I ended up in a Santa suit at Sacred Heart Hospital on Christmas Day. It helped me put things into perspective. Seeing what those kids and families were going through made my problems feel small. The frustration and pain from my divorce didn't disappear, but it wasn't overwhelming anymore. I realized that even if I never got the relationship I wanted with Angie and Erica, I'd survive. When Angie and Erica returned to Brownwood on New Year's Eve, things felt calm again, until midnight. Angie had come back stressed from Dallas, but as the night wore on, she relaxed. We spent the evening at Miss Harper's house, surrounded by neighbors and friends, but no one from the gym. I noticed how Angie kept her personal life separate from work. As midnight neared, Erica was still awake, and Angie revealed her secret. Erica had taken a long nap so she could stay up and celebrate with me. When the clock struck 12, Erica kissed her mom and then me on the cheek. Now you gotta kiss Mama, she giggled. I laughed. You never know what happens when a princess kisses an ogre. That only happens with frogs, she squealed. My friend's mom kissed lots of frogs and just got warts. Angie and I laughed, but Mama Bear quickly shut that down. Then with a mischievous look, Angie kissed me, a real kiss this time. It wasn't just a peck, it was a moment where we both seemed to forget everyone around us. Crap, she whispered afterward. Tommy, you need to make weight soon. Like many, I dove into the gym after the holidays, but my reasons were less about guilt and more about dropping those final 12 pounds after that New Year's kiss. My mind was consumed with the anticipation of what Angie had promised if I reached my goal. I had a false start in January, claiming I'd made weight, but Angie quickly reminded me that cutting water weight didn't count. Valentine's Day was just around the corner, and I asked Erica to be my Valentine. She giggled, Tommy Bear, I'm already your Valentine. Later that night, I cornered Angie and grinned. I hit my weight 2 days ago. About time, she laughed. I'll come by after Erica's asleep and Mrs. Harper can babysit. I was floored when she said Mrs. Harper had been on standby for 2 weeks, waiting for me to make weight. That night, after what felt like hours of anticipation, Angie knocked on my door. She entered with a large tote bag and put a finger to my lips before I could say a word. The less you talk, the better this will go, she said in a husky voice. Trust me. She handed me a CD and told me to get comfortable, then disappeared into my bathroom. A few minutes later, her voice called out, Start the music. I was taken aback when Hailstorm's I Get Off filled the room. As the song pulsed, Angie strutted out in a blue and silver cheerleader outfit, complete with a tight sweater and short skirt. Her ponytail and ribbon completed the look. She rocked it. Angie, I stammered. Tommy, she whispered, this isn't just for you, it's for me. I had a brief, overwhelming realization that everything between Angie and me would change tomorrow, and it scared me. She kissed me deeply, then pulled back with a questioning look. Since before the Christmas ball, I said, I couldn't focus on anyone but you. She smiled warmly. Me too, I was surprised. No Daniel? I asked, regretting it immediately. Her expression shifted. No, not since before I bought my dress for the ball. That's probably why he acted like a jerk that night. Even though we weren't a couple, he can be possessive. The idea of taking my clothes off for you these past 2 months has been exciting, more than I expected. After our New Year's Eve kiss, I knew I'd go further than just dancing. That anticipation had me on edge. I'm sorry if I blurred the lines. Well, she added with a grin, I'm kind of sorry. So? I began cautiously. All night? She laughed and nodded. Erica's with Mrs. Harper tonight. We've got time. Good, I said, struggling to stand with Angie still wrapped around me. We laughed as I carried her to the bedroom, unwrapping her playfully before dropping her onto the bed. She looked up with a smirk. "What?" she teased. "You're the most incredible person I've ever met," I said softly. "This is the best gift I've ever received." We had wild, passionate sex, and afterward we lay in each other's arms. Angie whispered, "Was it everything you'd hoped for?" I was stunned. How could she not know she'd given me the best night of my life? Then I realized I didn't know her as well as I thought. Beneath her strength and beauty, she was vulnerable. I could either reassure her or tell the whole truth, which would leave me exposed. I chose the latter. "Yes and no," I replied softly, feeling her tense. Yes, it was everything I fantasized about. But the top of my bucket list isn't just having sex with the girl of my dreams, it's making love to the woman of my dreams. Angie went quiet. "I know you don't feel the same way I do," I said gently. "That's okay. What I want most is to make love to the love of my life. Someone who gives herself to me completely, just as I would to her. I thought I had that with Leah, but I was wrong. Tonight was incredible, partly because you're so beautiful, but also because you care for me as a friend. Still, you detached emotionally at times, and I noticed." Angie was silent for a moment, then whispered, "So, you have feelings for me?" "Of course," I said, pulling her close. "I love you more than just as a friend. It's not just your body I'm in love with." She was still, then let out a small sob. "You don't know me, Tommy boy," she whispered. "If you did, you wouldn't think of me as some dream girl." We lay quietly before she softly revealed, "Did you know I've been married twice?" "No," I replied gently. "My first marriage was in Dallas." "Is that why going back is so hard?" I asked. She nodded, eyes tearing up. Angie explained how she'd married her high school boyfriend Jimmy right after graduation. They were happy at first, but after an injury ended her volleyball career and scholarship, she started dancing to make ends meet. Jimmy didn't mind at first, but it wore on him. Their fights escalated, especially after he started spending time with his ex-girlfriend, who had secretly had his child years ago. Angie, hurt and angry, cheated with one of Jimmy's friends. When the truth came out, their marriage fell apart. "I was a 20-year-old cheating ex-wife," she said softly. "Not the dream most girls have. After that, I met Eric. I guess karma's a witch. I cheated on Jimmy, and then Eric cheated on me. Once a cheater, always a cheater, right? How can anyone love that?" She rolled away, crying. I held her tightly, fighting back my own tears. After a long silence, I kissed the back of her neck and whispered, "Damn, Angie. I wish you could see yourself through my eyes." Her response took me by surprise. "How do you see me?" she asked quietly, her voice filled with fear and uncertainty. I realized she assumed I saw her the same way other men had, focused on her beauty, blind to anything deeper. It broke my heart to see how much her looks had been both a blessing and a burden. "I wish I had the words of a poet," I began, "but I'm just a lucky fool holding the most beautiful woman I've ever known. I won't say I love you because you might not believe me. You'd think I'm confusing love with lust. Yes, I desire you, but it's more than that. Angie, you're an incredible woman, though you seem to struggle to believe it. You think men can't see past your beauty, but you're wrong." I paused to make sure she was listening. "I love how your eyes sparkle when you talk about Erica or the gym. I love your laugh. It makes my day better no matter how tough it's been. I admire how you handle the different personalities at the gym. And I see a smart, tough businesswoman who's also deeply sensitive. You're fiercely protective of your daughter and those you care about, even though being strong all the time wears you down. You fear letting someone in, worried they might hurt you or Erica. But Angie, your love and passion would overwhelm the right man. You'd be his world, and Erica would be their moon, a gift more precious than anything he could imagine." She placed my hand against her tear-streaked cheek. I gently brushed her hair back and kissed her ear. "You're remarkable, Angie. Thank you for tonight. I'll never forget it." We held each other until we fell asleep. The next morning, she was gone. I knew things would change, but I didn't realize how awkward it would become. Over the next few days, Angie was distant, and when we finally talked, she had her walls up. I thanked her for that night and promised not to bring it up again, which seemed to relieve her. Things eventually returned to how they'd been before the 4th of July. I wasn't happy about it, but it wasn't unexpected. I accepted that we'd stay friends, nothing more. Still, it hurt, especially because I knew from the beginning I might be the one to get hurt if we went too far. Weeks passed, and then one evening there was a knock at my door. Angie stood there, clearly upset, her face tear-streaked. I quickly let her in. "Is Erica okay?" I asked. "She's fine," Angie said, her voice shaky. "Tommy boy, I need to ask a favor." She hesitated. "Would you hold me tonight, just as a friend?" "Of course," I agreed. I held her on the couch as she cried into my chest. When she calmed down, I asked her what had happened. "Eric called," she whispered. "He's moving back to Brownwood and wants to be part of Erica's life again." I held her tightly as she wept, and when she quieted, I gently suggested a lawyer might help. "I can't do that," she said, shaking her head. "I won't keep him away unless he's dangerous. Eric knows that, and he's using it against me. I can't deny Erica the chance to know her father, even if he was selfish." She sighed, frustrated. "It's unfair. Just when things were changing." "How are things changing?" I asked softly, hoping I was part of that change. She looked up at me. "I'm sorry I've been so distant. That night, it was more than I expected. The closeness after, sharing things with you I've never told anyone else, it scared me. It reminded me of how I felt when I was first married, and I wasn't ready for that." Angie explained she wasn't sure what our relationship was now, and she wasn't sure we could handle friends with benefits without wanting more. Then Eric's return stirred up all her old emotions, adding to the confusion. She was scared, unsure if she still had feelings for him. "I'm sorry, Tommy boy," she said. "I'm an emotional mess. I came here because I needed to feel safe, and I know that's unfair to you." I sighed, opened my arms, and she flew into them, crying again. I pushed down my own feelings, wanting nothing more than to love her fully, but I stayed strong for her. Soon after, I ran into Eric at the gym. He looked like a Greek god, and I couldn't help but feel insecure. How could I ever compete with guys like him or Daniel Pickering? I had been feeling good about myself, but seeing him brought out the worst in me. He was surrounded by guys like Rob Sutherland and Marcus Dixon, and a group of women was clearly checking him out. Angie had told me Eric had been spending time with Erica, apologizing and trying to make amends, but I knew he wanted more than just to reconnect with his daughter. He wanted Angie back. One evening, while holding Angie, I asked if she was considering getting back with Eric. After a pause, she said no, but admitted she was surprised by her lingering feelings for him. I understood, having dealt with similar emotions after my encounter with Leah the previous Christmas. I reassured Angie that everything would be fine, serving as her emotional refuge. Though I was honored to be that safe place for her, it was also incredibly difficult. Holding her close without being able to kiss or touch her the way I wanted felt like torture. As I wrestled with those thoughts, I heard a voice. "Tommy boy." "Crap," I muttered. It was Brandon. I walked over to him and the group, including Rob Sutherland, Marcus Dixon, and Eric. Rob had a smug grin, and Eric wore a condescending smirk. Sensing a potential confrontation, I stayed calm. "So you're the famous Tommy Bear my daughter talks about," Eric said. "She's a special girl," I replied. "Yes, she is," he said. "Good stock, thanks to me." His macho response irked me, and I felt a surge of anger. But I knew any altercation could ruin my job and cause trouble for Angie. "I'm surprised," Eric continued. "I expected you to be bigger, scarier, not some teddy bear." "I'm not into scaring little girls," I shot back, adding, "And you're not what I expected, just some guy who abandoned his wife and daughter for a rich old fling." Eric sneered. "At least I didn't have to beg Angie to sleep with me. Pathetic." I lost it. I punched him in the stomach, and he dropped to his knees, gasping for air. I grabbed his hair and bent his head back. "One more comment about Angie, and I'll ruin you," I hissed. Before I could hit him again, Brandon shouted, "Be cool, man!" I released Eric, knowing I'd already messed up. I walked away, heading to Angie's office, realizing I hadn't done it for her. I'd done it for myself, to protect my pride. Angie returned and sighed as she sat down. "I missed all the excitement," she said. "People told me what happened." "I'm sorry," I said. "I'll leave so Eric can't cause trouble for you." She studied me for a moment. "You don't need to leave. Eric won't press charges. His pride won't let him. Plus, he's trying to buy the gym back from me. He wouldn't want to make this public." "Are you selling?" I asked, surprised. "Yes, I'm considering it. I want to pursue my dream of becoming a physical therapist." I was relieved when she said she'd stay in Brownwood for at least 4 more years. I packed up my things, thinking it was over, but as I left the locker room, Angie stopped me. "Tommy boy, put your things back. I'm not kicking you out for defending me." She stepped closer, wrapped her arms around my neck, and kissed me like she had on our special night. The room filled with whistles and cheers, but I only saw her. "I love you," she whispered, "and not just as a friend." That kiss and her confession sent rumors flying. Suddenly, people at the gym were congratulating me, and we became known as Beauty and the Beast. When Angie asked if I was okay with that, I knew we had reached a deeper understanding. "Are you sure it doesn't bother you?" Angie asked. I smiled, pulling her into my arms. "Angie," I said, "I've never thought of myself as a pretty boy, but I'm surprised so many people have seen you with pimples on your bum." She laughed, elbowing me, and then looked into my eyes. "You don't get to call me that anymore, not when it's about you," she whispered. I kissed her deeply until I felt her relax. "Okay, Angel," I teased, "but I know my beauty loves to tease her man." With a mischievous grin, she replied, "Erica might need to stay at Mrs. Harper's tonight. Think the Beast can come out to play?" "Oh, I think we can make that happen." Over the next few months, I learned a lot about Angie, especially that despite her teasing, she was more reserved in the bedroom than I'd expected. And they lived happily ever after? Yeah, right. Life's not like that. Even after getting the girl, reality sets in. Being with a beautiful woman can boost your ego while simultaneously making you insecure. You're proud to be with her, but there's always the nagging thought she could do better. That doubt eats away at you, especially if she enjoys drawing attention. My insecurities started showing. Angie and I hit some rough patches, leading to ugly conversations. One night, she wore a form-fitting blouse and short skirt, drawing even more attention than usual. She loved the stares, even teasing me about not wearing anything underneath. I was excited, but also jealous, and it showed. The night spiraled downhill, with her frustration growing as I failed to hide my irritation. As we drove home, she snapped, "What's your problem, Tommy boy?" "Nothing," I lied, though we both knew it wasn't true. "Nonsense. Why are you acting like a sulking child?" "I don't know," I grumbled. "It felt like you were flaunting what's supposed to be mine." Her anger flared, and tears welled in her eyes. "I've never given you a reason to think I'd cheat on you," she said, her voice trembling. "You need to grow up and stop being so insecure." I shot back. "So when you're scared or upset, I'm supposed to be your safe place. But when I'm the one who's insecure, I get told to grow up. That's what I have to look forward to?" She sat in silence, processing my words. When we reached her house, I told her I needed time to think. She looked hurt, but nodded and got out of the car. Back at my apartment, I barely had time to sit down before she knocked on the door. Angie looked heartbroken, and without thinking, I reached out to hold her. She clung to me, whispering, "Don't shut me out. Tell me what you're feeling. I may not like it, but I can handle it. Just don't give up on us." "I'm sorry too," I whispered. She took my face in her hands, her eyes full of emotion. "Tommy boy, you were right. I've leaned on your strength and didn't give you the support you needed. I'm sorry for acting like a cold-hearted witch. Since Eric left, I've been in survival mode, protecting Erica and myself. This is all new to me. I'm not good at this." "What? Apologizing?" I teased softly. She smirked, but her eyes were serious. "I haven't been in a real relationship in years. There are some things you need to understand if we're going to make this work. First, I'm not Leah. I'll never cheat on you. I've made that mistake before and will never do it again. You can trust me. Second, I'm going to screw up sometimes, but I need you to forgive me when I do. I'll forgive you when you mess up too. And lastly, you need to stop doubting yourself. Yes, I could find someone else, but I choose to be with you. You make me feel like I've found my dreams again." She paused, watching my reaction. Then she added, "We could have something special, Tommy. I know it'll take time, but I believe in us." I smiled, feeling my insecurity fade. "We'll figure this out together." She kissed me softly. "Just remember, baby, Zex doesn't solve everything." "Maybe not," I whispered in her ear, "but it sure doesn't hurt." And that night, it didn't. We worked together to overcome my insecurities about Angie's exhibitionism. There were boundaries, many similar to the ones Leah had crossed without care years before. The turning point came when I decided to trust Angie fully. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but she wasn't Leah. Angie was committed to fighting for us, and I had to do the same. Angie had her own trust issues from 2 broken marriages and the challenges that come with being beautiful and well off. Was someone in love with her, or just her looks and money? It's a common fear for people like her, surrounded by gold diggers and people chasing superficial desires. But despite the difficulties, we fought side by side, growing closer as a couple. The three of us, Angie, Erica, and I, became inseparable. As spring ended, Angie grew nervous about selling the gym and hinted at wanting to talk to me about something. When she sold it to Eric, she made sure he signed away his parental rights to Erica. She told me she wanted him completely out of their lives and hinted that someday Erica would have a new daddy, one who would love her fully. Angie also underwent bosom reduction surgery, saying she didn't need the reminder of her past anymore. She looked even more beautiful, but I had to work through my own insecurities about the change. Eventually, our relationship deepened, and I joined her and Erica on a trip to Dallas. At a family cookout, I met her relatives, who were not as intimidating as I had imagined. Most loved her but didn't agree with her past decisions, and some still held grudges. I ended up in a conversation with her aunt Rebecca, who hinted I might hear negative things about Angie's past. My response was loud and clear. I can't believe anyone would talk trash about a woman in front of the man who loves her. The statement quickly spread throughout the party, and Angie soon sat next to me, teasing, "So, you love me, huh?" "Duh," I replied. "I'd shout it out every time we're in public if it wouldn't embarrass you." She grinned and said, "People are already asking when we're getting married." I smiled and admitted I had been planning to propose during a Crusader football game, but I needed to be sure of her answer first. She was both surprised and emotional. As the day went on, I asked her father for his blessing. Though he initially dismissed it, saying I didn't need his approval, I explained that it mattered to her, and therefore it mattered to me. He gave his blessing, telling me to take care of his daughter, and warned me not to hurt her like her last husband had. When I returned to Angie, a small crowd had gathered around her, including her mother and Aunt Rebecca. Kneeling in front of her, I took her hand and Erica's. "Angie," I began, "I've loved you since the moment you told me to get off my fat bum and give you 5 more reps." "Mommy," Erica gasped, wide-eyed. "Tommy Bear said bum." As I knelt, a small crowd gathered around, but I continued, "It was easy to fall for you, Angie, because of your beauty. But the more I knew you, the more I realized you're even more amazing on the inside. I asked your father for his blessing to marry you and become Erica's dad." Angie, her mother, and her aunt looked over at her father in surprise. "Well, I'll be damned," Aunt Rebecca whispered. Turning back to Angie, I asked, "Will you marry me?" Erica chimed in, "But I already have a daddy." "You're right," I smiled, "but maybe I could be Papa Bear too." Angie knelt and kissed me as cheers erupted around us. "Was that a yes?" I asked, grinning. "Yes, Tom Swanson, I'll marry you," she laughed. The rest of our trip to Dallas was a blur. As we left for the airport, Angie's father hugged her and Erica tightly. Angie's mother quietly thanked me, saying, "They needed this." Back in Brownwood, I replaced Angie's fake ring with a real one, a carrot big enough to make her happy and keep the wolves away, as she joked. We got married in a small ceremony in December at St. Catherine's Chapel. What we saved on the wedding, we spent on a 2-week honeymoon in Hawaii. By the time we returned, we had settled into a suburban life in Brownwood. I was promoted to senior network administrator, and Angie became a physical therapist assistant at Sacred Heart. She also started St. Catherine's DPT program, right on track. We recently bought a 5-bedroom house in Twin Oaks, not far from Angie's first place, and even set up a home gym. Occasionally, I still see Leah and Susie around town. Leah's still with Theo, and Susie married Bryce Hawthorne, becoming the trophy wife she always wanted to be. I heard some rumors about their questionable lifestyle, but I don't dwell on it. I've moved on, and I have everything I need now. These days, I've got my hands full with my 2 beautiful blondes. Angie and Erica are waiting for me to take them to the Christmas ball. Both look stunning in their sapphire dresses. Yes, Erica is officially my daughter now. Angie's also sporting a baby bump, and Erica has already named her future sibling Baby Bear to complete our fairy tale. Tonight's going to be special, and I can't stop thinking about how gorgeous Angie looks, even with her baby bump. I'm struggling to keep my hands off her as she finishes her makeup.